So I'm gonna go over the grade book, and what I've got here is basically a blank course, and so this is what it would look like from a brand new course. But really quick before I start, over here on the CITR website, under resources, if you go to Western Online Resources and then tutorials and tip sheets, there is a few resources here for you. I have a gradebook PDF all the way down here at the bottom of the Western Online tip sheets. So that goes through everything that I'm going to go through. Then there's also some online tutorials and some video clips here. So those are there available to you, especially if you can't get a hold of me or CITR and you need some help. So let me go ahead and start here. Now the grade book in Western Online is under grade tools here, and we have this option here for grades. And when your students ask you where to get their grades, they go to the exact same place. It just looks different for them. So we'll go to grade tools and we'll go to grades. And when you have a blank course and you haven't set up the grade book, it takes you to the setup wizard. And we'll go through this wizard. It's basically just a way for you to kind of set things up to get you started. Everything that you set in here can be changed later up in the settings area right here, which I'll go over in a little bit. But first, let me go through the wizard real quick, and I'll explain some of the things in there. So when we go through the wizard, it's just a typical wizard. We just click start, and it takes us through this, basically a 7-step process. Asks us some questions on how we want to set up our gradebook. So step 1 is what kind of grading system do we want to use? And there's 3 options. There's a weighted system, a point system, and a formula system. Most of the time people use points, but I do know people who have weighted systems. Really the only difference is if you choose weighted here, when you create grade items, there's an extra box there to enter in the weight for those particular grade items. When you use points, you don't have that box. So that's really the only difference. I'm going to go through the point system for our purposes here. The formula system will allow you to, it'll give you a formula editor that you can actually put in a formula to calculate. If you got some complicated calculation that you need to do to get your grade, you can use the formula option there. But our point system is just pretty straightforward. You put in the total possible points for each grade item. The system will look at the points that you entered and automatically add that up for a total. And then as you enter in your grades, it'll calculate it for you and then release that to the students. So we're going to go ahead and leave this to points here, and I'll click continue. And on step 2, it asks us, do we want to release the calculated final grade or adjusted final grade? The difference between those two, the calculated final grade is where the system looks at all the numbers that you put in, calculates it, and then gives you the total possible and the total earned by the students, and you can't change that. That is generally what I recommend you choose. The adjusted final grade, that basically all that is it gives you an area to type in something different, because you can't change the calculated grade. But let's say you want to add a few points for whatever reason, extra credit. You can use the adjusted final grade and actually type that in. Automatically release. This is actually new, so let me read this. This must be within the last update. When enabled, the system automatically marks user's final grades is released. Once created, you may still not status released. Okay. It's not letting me gray that out, so maybe that's something that's not working yet. I'll look into that and see what that that addition is. That's brand new. I haven't seen that before. So calculated final grade is what I recommend that you start out with, unless you know that you're going to want to type in something different than the calculation. And this can be changed at any time. So it doesn't matter which one you choose. You can change it. So we'll leave it to calculated final grade and we'll click continue. Step 3 asks us if we want to drop ungraded items or treat them as 0. I recommend you drop ungraded items. So what this does, if you drop ungraded items, let's say right now in the semester, for example, in the class that I'm teaching, they've only done 2 quizzes. So everything else in the grade book will be ignored, and it will just give the student a final grade on what they've done so far, which would be those 2 quizzes. So if a student got 10 out of 10 out of both quizzes, it'll show them that they're getting an A at this point because it dropped everything else that didn't have a grade in it. Now, if I choose this second option, which is treat ungraded items as 0, in my situation, the 2 quizzes are the only thing that have a grade in it. So if I choose this option, everything else in the grade book is going to automatically have a 0 put in it, and then it's going to show them that they're flunking. So it's treating everything that I have not touched as a 0 and then showing them that they're getting an F. So I tend to leave it to this other option, drop ungraded items. If you do choose this option, the one thing you do have to remember to do is anything that a student does not turn in, you have to actively type in 0. Otherwise, they're getting a freebie in terms of the calculation that the gradebook is doing. Because if it's ungraded, it's ignoring it. But if they don't do it and it should have a grade in it, go ahead and make sure you put in a 0. And that way it'll be counted as 0 and be included in the calculation. This checkbox here, we want to leave that automatically keep final grade updated. So we'll leave that checked and we'll click continue. Now, grade schemes, the system always uses percentages in the grade book, in the background, no matter what system you choose, no matter what scheme you use, it's always going to use percentages. But a scheme can be used to do something like show a letter grade. So I have a scheme that I've created in this particular sandbox area called letter grade scheme. And I'll go over that a little bit later right here in the schemes area and show you how that's done. But basically what that letter grade scheme will do is based on what I enter in, the system will look at the percentage that the student got and then show them a letter grade based on the percentages that I type in. And I'll show you that a little bit later. But we're going to leave this to percentage. And when it says choose default grade scheme, basically what that means is when we create new grade items as we go, we're telling it use this scheme by default when you create that grade item. When you create a grade item, you can always change it, but by default it's going to go to percentage. So we're going to leave that set to this. And keep in mind that this letter grade scheme does not show up in a brand new course. This is something I created. Okay, so we'll leave it to percentage and we'll click continue. Okay, managing view display options. So this is what you see. Number of decimal places to display. So if you want to show 2 decimal places, you can leave that to 2, or you can put in a 0. Just depends on what you want to see. So I'll leave that at 2 and click continue. Now the student view display options, this is what the students will see. So you always have to type in points. So percentages and points the system will always use. So if you have a weighted system, you still have to give each grade item a point value, and then you also have to give it a weight value. But this will let you choose what you allow the students to see. Points, you'll want this checked. If you want them to see the grade scheme would be the percentage. You'll have that checked. And then grade scheme color is just a color that it puts in the background of the grade. So that's you can either check that on or off. It doesn't really matter. And then we have a number of decimals to display for the students. I have that the same as the other one. And then characters to display. This is if you create text items. So if you create a text grade item, it'll let you just type in whatever you want. And this number here is the number of characters it displays in the grade book before it starts to truncate. And then again, display final grade calculation to users. Yeah, we do want that, so we'll leave that checked there. So if I click continue, step 7 is basically just a summary and lets us know, okay, this is what we chose through the wizard. And like I said earlier, all this can be changed up here in settings. So what I'll do now is I'll click finish. And once I click finish, it takes me to this area here where I can just go ahead and start building my grade book. But what I want to do real quick is show you settings first. So I'm going to click on settings in the upper right, and that link, unless you're in settings, is up there in the upper right the entire time you're in the grade book. So you can get to it basically from anywhere. And what it gives you is these 3 tabs here, and it gives you all the options that we just chose in the wizard plus some extra stuff. So the first tab is personal display options. This is what you see. So it gives you some more options here of things to see. Points grade, grade scheme, again. User details, if you want to see some more of that stuff, their username. You know, I don't know anybody that uses that because it takes up a lot of room in the columns, but it is there if you decide you want to see that information. And then down here we have a few options. Number of characters to display for text items. I don't remember if this is the default because I use this same course for this workshop and I may have changed it. But you can type in a number there. Number of columns before user details repeat. So in the enter grade screen, which we'll see a little bit later, it gives you a column view of all of your grade items. And your students appear all the way on the left. And you can tell the system by typing in a number here, every 5 columns, which is what I have typed in here, repeat my student names. Because if you got your columns going all the way over to the right and you're scrolling, then you don't see your student names anymore. So you can tell it to repeat their names every 5 columns as you scroll over. And you can put whatever number you want here. I think I use 10 in one of my courses. So every 10 columns, it repeats the user details. And then the number of users before column header repeats. This is going the other way. So in our enter grades, we have our columns, and then we have the titles for each column going across this way. And so this number here will repeat the column headers every, what I have here is 10. So every 10 students, it repeats those columns. So this is going up and down where the other number is going left and right. So you can type whatever number you want in there. Repeat, this area here will allow you to repeat the calculated final grade at the start of the user list. I find this kind of annoying, so I turn it off, but you can turn it on where you see the final grade at the beginning column and at the end, okay? And then repeat adjusted final grade, same thing, either at the beginning or the end. I like to leave those off, but you can choose a start page as well. So when you go to grade tools here and choose grades, you can tell the system which page to go to first when you click that link. So if you're always in the enter grades area, you can choose that. And when you click grade tools grades, it'll automatically take you there. The default is manage grades. And I usually leave it there. So you can change that if you want. Okay, the next tab is the org unit display options, and that is what the students see. So we saw that in the wizard where we were showing them points in the scheme here, but it gives us a couple other options. The decimal points, we can change that as well if we decide that we want that to change. But for the most part, there's not much else in here to change. The third one, the calculation options, this is where you can change your system. So you can change this at any point in the middle of the semester. You decide, I want to do weighted, or I want to go from weighted to points, or points to formula, whatever. You can change that, and it does not affect your grades at all. Anything that you entered in will still remain, so you can change that. And then if you do decide that you want to use the adjusted final grade as opposed to the calculated final grade when you release grades, you'll choose that here. This is kind of can be kind of confusing. Final grade released. This isn't actually releasing the final grade. It is just a way for you to choose which one gets released when you do release the final grade. All grade items are released when you create them by default, unless you actively hide it or put a schedule on it. But the final calculated grade is not released, and you have to actively go in and release that, which I'll show you how to do here in a little bit. And then grade calculations here. So this is where you can change. If you decide you don't want to drop ungraded items, you want to treat them as 0, you can change that. And then automatically keep final grades updated. So the settings area will let you change anything that you did in the wizard, and then a few other things as well. And this is one of the only areas in Western Online that does not give you a save and close. You have to do it separately. So you make your changes, you click save, and you confirm that, and then you have to close it again. So that's the settings area, which is right there. So we've been through the wizard, and then the settings. Manage grades is where we're going to spend a lot of our time now. This is where we actually build all of our grade items, at least one way of building our grade items. There's a couple of different ways, which I'll show you. But before we create grade items, we need to decide if we want to put our grade items into categories, which we can do. And if I click the new drop-down, I get 2 options, item and category. So a category is basically a way of organizing all of your grade items into different sections. So you can create a category for all your assignments, category for all your quizzes, discussions, and so on. Doesn't matter if you do that or not. It's just kind of a personal preference. I'll do it just to show you what it looks like. There is also a couple of advantages to having categories. One of them being that you can, if you want to drop, for example, the lowest quiz, you would have to put it in a category. That's how it would be done. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'll create a new category here, new, and I'll choose category. And I do get this call a lot. I created some grade items, but there's no place to enter a grade. And usually what that means is that you've created a grade category and not an actual grade item. Okay, so I'm going to create a category. I'll just call this assignments. And we have a few options in here. So can exceed. So what this will allow me to do is all of the grade items that I put into this category, let's say they add up to 50 points. If I choose can exceed, it will allow me to exceed that 50 points. Now I also have to check this in the grade item itself, which I'll show you here in a minute, but that'll allow you to go over what the total possible is for this category. If you want to create some grade items that are graded but not included in the final grade for whatever reason, you can exclude anything inside of this category, and you can do this on the grade item level as well. Under distribution here, this is where you would drop the lowest grade for something. So I can click distribute points across all items, and then I can type in a number here if I want to. So if you want to drop the lowest quiz, all the quizzes have to be worth the same amount of points. You can't have them worth 10 points, one worth 20 points, and so on. They have to be the same. So if I choose this option here and I type in 10, I can type in any number I want here. Any grade item I put in here will default to 10 points. And then I can use this option down at the bottom here. I don't know anybody that uses this first one here. But the second option here, or third actually in this category, I type in if I want to drop just the one lowest grade, I would type in a 1. And then the lowest grade in that category would be excluded from the calculation. So that's how you would drop it. So that's what we use that for. So I'm just going to uncheck that. Down here we have some display options. Usually just left alone works fine, but you can display class average to users and display grade distribution to users as well. For the most part, categories, you'll click create, new category, give it a name, save and close is generally all you'll need to do, unless you are distributing points evenly. Everything's going to be the same grade. You can do that as well. But I will just leave this to assignments, and I'll click save and close. And so now we have an assignments area here, and there is no place to enter a grade. All right. But now what I can do is I can create grade items and then put them inside of this category pretty easily. Okay, I got a question here. I don't want the system to calculate grades. I just want it to be able to show students all the grades I've recorded for them over the semester. I use an Excel file gradebook to record grades over the semester. Is there a way I can import data from Excel? No. Yes and no. Let me rephrase that. If you export the gradebook first from here, you can export it as an Excel document. Then you can make some changes and then re-import the Excel document back in to Western Online. But you cannot create one from scratch and then import it that way. But if all you're doing is entering in the grades and you don't want it to calculate anything, just don't release the calculated grade. It's not released by default anyway. So you would just leave that alone and just enter in your grades and leave it. So does that answer your question? I don't know if we have a delay here. I'll wait for.
I have a question too, Chad, but I'll wait and see if there's a response here on this one.
Okay. So I create all the categories and export, then import the real data. Yes, so you could export you create all your categories and grade items, export it, enter in all the grades, and then you can re-import it and all the grades should be in the import. So yes, you can do that. Elon, your question?
Okay, so going back to the distribution, it has it like on the distribute points across items, it has 10 points per item. And so at that point, if something goes in that category, I can't make it more than 10 points. Is that right?
The total possible, no.
And so I've tried to change that. Sometimes I've gotten in these weird situations where I've tried to get in there and change that, and I've been unable to. Does that ring a bell with you at all?
To change the total possible points?
Points per item, yeah, under distribution, like it's there at 10, and I've gotten in these weird situations, I believe, and where it's locked there at 10, and I can't click a dialog box to alter it from 10 to something else.
Well, what you would do is, if they're in a category and you have this checked, you could either change that number there. Yeah. You would just have to uncheck it and then put in the grades manually. When you create each item, they can be different that way. Does that make sense? And it might answer your question when I get into creating the items too.
Okay, yeah, and I have another question on creating items, but I'll hold off on that. It's just,
okay. Importing a file, I'll show you that here in a little bit when we get into the enter grades area. There's an export and then there's an import option. Okay, so I'm going to cancel this. And here's my assignments category. Now I'm going to go ahead and create a grade item. So I'll click new, and instead of choosing category, I'll choose item. And we get all these different options. We got numeric, select box, pass, fail, formula, calculated, and text. The only grade item type that is calculated by Western Online is numeric. So if you want the grade item to be included, excuse me, into the calculation in the final grade, you need to choose numeric. Anything else does not get included. So I'm going to go ahead and choose numeric here. And it's similar to the category screen. It's going to want a name, so I'll call this assignment 1. The short name is optional. All that is when you go to the enter grade screen and you get the column view, you can sometimes your grade items might get kind of long, so you can choose a short name. So if I type in A1, when I'm in that view, the column will just say A1 as opposed to assignment 1. So that is optional. You don't have to do that. Now, if I'm going to put this particular item in a category, here's where I do that. There's a category drop down. And then any categories that I have created will show up here. So there's my assignments category. I can choose that, and it'll now go into that category. Down here under grading, here's where I'll type in my maximum points here, which default is 10. So if I want this to be something different, I'll just type in 25, for example. And no matter what, in a numeric grade item, you always have to type in points. Even if you have a weighted system, a weighted system adds another text box for weight, but it still has a points option as well. And then some of the items that we saw in the category, so can exceed. If I check this, it'll allow me to type in more than 25. So that you'll have to check that if you want it to be more than the total possible. And then I'll skip bonus for a second, and then here's the exclude from final grade calculation. If this is something you don't want to be included, you can check that and it won't be included. But this bonus, the one in the middle, this is what you want to choose if you were if this particular grade item is extra credit. And the way that works, and really quick before I get into that, you cannot put a bonus item in a category. It does not work. So if this is going to be an extra credit and you mark it as bonus, you have to make sure the category is set to none. So be aware of that. It just simply ignores it when you put it in to a category for whatever reason. And we've talked to D2L and they say that's by design.
Chad?
Yes.
Well, one thing I've done, I think, is I've just created a category of extra credit and then not included that in the final grade calculation or something. I can't remember exactly what I've done, but I've created an extra credit category.
Well, the category doesn't give you the option to check it as bonus. So it's not true extra credit that way.
Right, because but if I don't, can't I do something like that and then not include that category in the final grade?
Then they're not going to get the extra credit points.
In the calculation, right. Okay.
Right, yep. What this does, here's how the bonus works. So I wouldn't put it in a category. And if I wanted this to be extra credit, I would check bonus. And what it does is the system will go through and calculate all the grade items. And if it sees a bonus one, it'll ignore it. It'll calculate everything. It'll take that calculation and then go back and look at any bonus items and throw them on top as extra credit points. So let's say you have a total possible of 100 points for your entire course. Let's just use that number. Then you have a 10-point extra credit. Let's say the student gets all points, even all the extra credit points. It'll show that they've got a 110 out of 100 because it's extra credit. But if you do that, the final calculated grade has to have this can exceed on it, or else it won't go over the 100. But an A is an A, so it doesn't really matter. So that's how the bonus works. It ignores it, calculates everything, and then takes everything that's marked as bonus and throws it on top. Okay, and then if you leave it marked as bonus, there's a little gold star, which I'll show you here in a little bit. But so can exceed, bonus, and then exclude. And then below that, we have the grade scheme. So remember, we went through the wizard, and we said by default, use the percentage. So by default, that's what's here. If I want to change it, I can, if I have created some more schemes, which in this particular course, I do have another one created, and I can use the letter grade. The letter grade, I'll show you what that looks like on the calculated grade. I'm going to leave this to percentage. Here I can add rubrics. So if I've created a rubric in the rubric tool, I can add that, connect it to this particular grade item. I think Sarah does want a workshop just on the rubrics itself. There's a whole separate rubric tool. And then under display options, again, I don't know many people, if any, that actually use any of this, but it is there. It's basically just ways of displaying this particular grade item if you want it to be different than what everything else is. But for the most part, it can just be left. Now, in the Properties tab for this particular grade item, we're good to go. I gave it a name, I gave it a short name, I put it in the category, total possible points. A couple other tabs here, restrictions. As I said earlier, by default, they're always visible to your students, so they'll be able to see this in their gradebook once we save it. You can hide it by clicking this option, and you can even schedule when it's released if you want to do something like that. So you can say, start on this day and time, and then disappear on this day and time. And then you can even put release conditions on it if you'd like. So a release condition basically means they have to complete this task before this grade item is released. So that is an option. Okay, objectives. I don't know anybody that uses this. The competencies tool is a whole separate tool where you can create learning objectives, and you could tie those objectives to particular grade items. So at this point, I'm pretty good. I like my grade item. I'm going to go ahead and click save. And now if I'm going to be creating a bunch of numeric grade items, I can just click save and new and just go through this process however many times I need to. Let me go ahead and do that just once, just so we can look at it. So I'll click save and new, and it takes me straight to this screen here, and I can just click numeric again, create my next one, assignment 2, A2, put it in the assignments category, total possible 25, and I can save and close. Okay, so when I save and close, it takes me back to the manage grades area. And as you can see here, I have my assignments category, which is a dark gray color. And then under that, these two assignment 1 and assignment 2 grade items, you see how they're indented over? That lets me know that it's in that category. If one of these was not in the category, it'd be flush over here to the left. It'd be justified over that way. So I've got my grade items here. So here's the title. I go over here. Here's the type, the grade item type. It's numeric. It's not associated with anything, which means it's not linked to a quiz or an assignment or a discussion, which we'll see here in a minute. And it's worth a total of 25 points. So when we go in and we create our grade items, they're not going to be linked to anything. We're just creating grade items to enter grades into the students can see. This is the process that you would go through. New category if you want it, new item, give it a name, total possible points, and save. And that's the process that you go through to build out that particular, your grade items there. Does that make sense? Okay. Another way of creating grade items is from the other tools within Western Online. So if you're using Western Online for your assignments and your quizzes and your discussions, you can create a grade item as you're creating those particular items. And I'll show you one example of how that works, and then it pretty much works the same throughout the different tools. So we're going to get out of the gradebook just for a second, and we're going to go to assessments, and we're going to go ahead and create an assignment over here using the assignments tool. We're actually going to go ahead and create our assignment here. So in here, when we want to create an assignment, we'll just click new submission folder. And I'm not going to go through all the details of this because it's not an assignments workshop, but I'll give this a title of assignment 3. Now, for the assignments tool, if I scroll down a little bit, I have an option here for grade item. We've already created 2 grade items in the grade book that are not linked to anything. So if I wanted to, I could click this drop arrow and link to one of those because they'll show up. Okay. Any grade items that are linked to something else will not show up in this list. Only grade items that are not linked and are available to be linked to will show up in this list. So you can do that. So one workflow would be you'd go in, create, let's say you got 10 assignments for your course. You go in and you create assignment 1 through 10 in the grade book. Then you can go create all your assignments and link to them as you create them this way. But let's say, okay, I'm creating assignment 3. I don't have a grade item for that yet. So I can go ahead and create that from here without having to go to the grade book. And I have this new grade item link right here. So if I click this, I am basically getting a portal into the grade book. This screen right here is the exact same screen we had when we clicked new item from within the grade book and we chose numeric. So it's exactly the same. So I'll type in my title, assignment 3, my short name, which would be A3, category, I want to put it in my assignments category, and then total possible, we'll say this one is also worth 25 points. Oops. And then I have all those same options for can exceed, bonus, and exclude, and so on. Grade scheme. So I've created my grade item here. When I click save, it's going to do 2 things. It's going to actually create a grade item over in the gradebook for me, and then it's going to go ahead and link this assignment to it from here. So I'll click save, and now the grade item is linked to assignment 3 in the gradebook. Now, for assignments, we have to go ahead and type in the out of points here as well. This process of clicking this new grade item is pretty much exactly the same in the discussion tool and the quizzes tool. So if you're creating a quiz, there's a place to create a new grade item from there if you want to do it that way. Same with discussions. So that process is basically the same. So I'm not going to go through it through all the other tools, but just be aware that you can do it from within those tools as opposed to doing it from the gradebook. So let's go ahead and save and close, and I'll take you back over to the gradebook and we'll see what happened. So here's my new assignment that I created. Now I'm going to go back over to grade tools and go to grades, and we'll see what happened. Now I have another grade item in here. It went on ahead and did that for me. It's called assignment 3. It's in the assignments category here because it's indented over. If I go over here to the right, you'll see it's a numeric type. And now this one has an association. It is linked to the assignments tool in the system. And then if I hover over this little eye icon, it'll give me a little tooltip here that tells me which assignment it's linked to, which is called assignment 3. And this one is also worth a total of 25 points. So that is the 2 different ways of going through and creating grade items, either straight from here in the gradebook or from another tool in the system.
Can I ask a question now?
Yep, go ahead.
And this, I don't know if this covered or if this is more of an assignments thing, but when I do that, I create associations, and then my students submit online. And then I grade using the dialog box and the assignments and have it go into my grade. Mm-hmm. Now, if I have a student who it gives me something late and they don't submit it online, like they email it to me or they give me a hard copy, and I have in my syllabus, you need to put it on, but whatever, you know, you always get those students. And then I go and I enter it in my grade book. My students can't see that.
They should be able to.
So they're not. So what am I not? So I'm not clicking something or something like that. Like I always have these cases at the end of the semester where they send me these emails, double check, do you have this graded? And I look in my grade book and I see the grades in there because I manually enter it on the grade book and enter grades instead of through the dialog box. And so I always go and see it. I say it's there, and they say, well, we can't see it.
Well, I'd have to look at your particular course and your situation, but off the top of my head, what I'm guessing is they're going to the assignment and looking for the grade there, which you didn't enter it in there. You entered it in straight to the grade book, right?
Yeah, they go to something and it's something that I can't see. It's like my grades. Isn't there some kind of like, you know, overview of all their grades on all their assignments that they
When they click grade tools and choose grades,
yeah.
that's where they'll see it. That's where they should see it. So I'll have to take a look at your particular situation to see. I'm guessing it's student error, but I'll look to be sure.
But okay, so do you understand what I'm saying about like they click something and then they see like their 8 grades for the whole class?
Yep.
And so, but there's another place they can look. Is that what you're saying?
They can look in each tool as well. So if it's an assignment, they could go into assignments here and see their grade there if that's where you entered it from. But
right, if I entered it on the grade book, they won't see it there.
Right.
They've shown me they've shown me like the front sheet that has all their grades, and they've shown me the blank on that one thing,
okay,
whatever the particular item is.
Okay.
And then because I entered it over on the grade book.
Okay. When we're done, I'll look at your course.
Well, I won't be able to demonstrate what it is though, because I can't show you what they're not seeing.
I can. If you give me a student's name, I can impersonate that student and look what they're seeing.
And, okay. So I can't recall a particular. Oh yeah, I might be able to recall a student. Okay. Let's keep going. I think I can recall a student too.
Okay, so that's the down and dirty on getting in and actually building out the grade book. So the way you would continue is if you want to put everything in categories. Now you want to do your quizzes. You go new category, go through that process again, and then new item to create your quiz items, or you would go to the quiz tool and create it from there, just like we did from the assignment. So that's how you actually build out the grade book. Now, once you've got stuff built, it's not all set in stone. You can go in and edit grade items and categories. So if I want to edit a category, for example, I would just click on the title and it takes me right back into that screen. And then I would make my changes and then save and close. Same with an assignment. So if I click on an assignment there or any grade item, it takes me right back into the screen I had when I created it, and I can make my changes. So for example, maybe the maximum points was wrong. I could change that there. And then I would save and close that. Now, if I've got something, now let's go ahead. I'm going to create another grade item. Okay, and I'm going to call this Quiz 1. I'll give it a short name of Q1. And I'm going to accidentally put it into my assignments category. And I'll save and close. So now I've got a quiz grade item in my assignments category. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. So what I'll do is I'll go back into Quiz 1 to the edit screen and just choose the correct category, or just choose none to take it out of that category. If I'd created a quizzes category, that would be an option. I'd just put it in there. But I'll take it out and I'll click save and close. And now it's not in that category anymore. See how it's moved over to the left? Lets me know that it's now not in that category. Okay, so you can go into each individual category and item and make changes at any time. If you want to reorder things, this isn't reordering and deleting grade items isn't real straightforward, but once you see it, it makes sense. If I want to reorder what I've got here, I've got a more actions drop down here, and I've got a couple of options. Reorder is the second one. So if I choose reorder, I've now got a number over here, and I just simply change the number. So if I want this quiz to be above all my assignments, I would click that and just choose 1 and then save it, and it'll move it for me. And so now that one is above that one. So that's how I would reorder categories, and I can reorder items within the category as well. Deleting grade items is another thing that's not real straightforward. In some of the other tools, if I wanted to delete, I would place a check here, click more actions, and then click delete. But that doesn't work here. What I have to do here is I have to click more actions and click delete first. Then it gives me a screen to choose the ones that I want to delete. Now you'll notice that assignment 3 is grayed out. It will not let me delete that. And the reason is it's associated with an assignment in the assignments tool. And any grade item that is linked to another tool in the system will not let you delete it. So I have to do one of two things. I have to go delete that assignment, or simply go into that assignment and edit it and unlink the grade item from it. Then it would allow me to delete that particular grade item. So if you run into that where it's grayed out, that means it's associated with something, and you have to break that association or delete a particular item in order to be able to delete the grade item itself. So if I want to delete, for example, this quiz 1, I'll place a check next to it and just click delete. Ask me to confirm, and now it's gone. So I get that question a lot about deleting, because they run into a situation where it's all grayed out and won't let them delete it. Okay, so that's how we create all of our categories and grade items. Once those are all created, we now want to be able to enter grades, and there are several ways of doing it. You can do it from right here, actually, in Manage Grades if you want to. So if I want to enter grades for assignment 1, I could click the little drop-down arrow and choose Enter Grades. And then when I click that, it takes me into assignment 1, and down below here, because there's no students in this course, all I see is the demo student, but you would have a list of all of your students. And then you could simply go down the list right here and type in your grades for each student. And then if you want to give them feedback, you can click this to bring up the feedback window. Give them feedback. Let's go ahead and do this. I'll say nice work. Click save. We'll say they got a 25. And then I'll save and close to save what I've done. Okay, and when I saved, it actually took me out and took me to the Enter Grades screen here. And this is another way, and this is the way that most people go about entering grades. I have another question here to leave. Okay, sounds good. Let me know. Just give me a call or shoot me an email if you need some help. Okay. Elon, it's just you and I.
Okay.
So enter grades, when you go over here to the enter grades area, you can see we have our grade items in a column view. And they're in their categories. So here's my assignments category, and here's my A1, A2, A3. Now this is the short name that I entered in. So that's where you'll see the short name. Now, in this screen, there are, let me shrink my window a little bit to make this. Okay, there's a button up here on the upper right that says switch to standard view. Now when I click that button, the button itself will change, and so will my screen. Right now I am in what's called spreadsheet view, which allows me to enter grades all across here. If you are not able to enter the grades in this screen, that means you are in standard view. So if I switch to standard view, this is what it looks like, and I'm not able to enter the grades. So if you want to be able to enter the grades from this screen, you'll make sure that you're in spreadsheet view, which is this button, and it changes it over to spreadsheet view. So you would have a list of all your students going this way, and a list of all your columns of all your grade items and categories going this way, and you could simply just type in a grade for anything that you have. You just have to make sure you click save in order to save it. You can also enter grades per student. So my students over here, you can see that it's a link. So if I click on that, it takes me in to all the grade items just for that student. And I can go down the list. Here's assignment 1, assignment 2, assignment 3, and I can enter grades that way. And then I would save and close. I'll go ahead and put in something here for assignment 2. I'll save and close. Confirm. And now there's a grade in there for assignment 2. So that's another way. I can do it per student. I can also do it per grade item from this screen. If each one of them has a drop-down arrow, just like it did under manage screen or manage grades, I can click that and choose grade all is what they call it here. But it's basically the same thing, takes you into the screen for just that particular grade item where you can go down the list and enter the grades. Okay, so let me cancel that. Now, kind of touching on your question that you had earlier about entering the grade from the grade book as opposed to the other tools. In the specific tools in the system, so for assignments, I can actually grade from there. And I think you've seen how to do that. You've done that before, right? Yeah, so when there's a submission in here, and I go into assignment 3, for example, all my submissions show up below. There is an evaluate link that I can click. It gives me a place to type in the grade and submit it, and it goes into the grade book. So that's another way of grading. Quizzes, a lot of the times, quizzes are done automatically because they're multiple choice, true, false, whatever. If they are just multiple choice, true, false, they're graded, you get set it up correctly, they're graded automatically, put into the grade book, and you don't have to do anything. Same with discussions. Those you'll have to go into, read your discussion, gives you an area to enter the grade, and submit it to the grade book. So several different ways to enter grades. So let me go back into the grades here. Under enter grades, we have a few options. The export option, the other person that was here, I think they've gone now. This is where, when they were talking about exporting, this is where you would actually export as an Excel sheet. Have you done that before, Elon?
I've exported it, yeah.
Yeah.
But I've never imported it.
Yeah. Not many people do, but some people want to do that.
Hold on 1 second here.
Yep.
Okay, have a good day. I'll see you later. Okay, I'm back.
Okay. That is pretty much it for creating your grade items and importing them, or I'm sorry, and entering the grades.
Okay.
The couple other things I want to show you. Before I do, though, let me go into the demo student so you see what they
I
see.
think you froze on me, Chad.
Did I?
Just for a second. You're back. You're fine.
Okay. So I'm going to go in as the demo student so you see what they see. So I'm going to, because that's the student I entered some grades for. So here I am as a student. Oops, what was that about? Okay. All right. As the student, I would click Grade Tools and go to Grades, and this is what it looks like for them. So this particular student has had 2 grades put in, 25 out of 25. Here's that feedback that I put in for him. Here's the percentage. We've told it to, when we were in the wizard, we said to show them the percentage and the points. So that's why they're seeing both. For assignment 2, they got a 23 out of 25. I did not put any feedback in there. Here's the percentage. And then assignment 3 didn't have a grade put in it yet. So that's what they see. They do not see the final total. That is something that has to be released manually by you. So if I get back out of here, and if I want to release that final calculated grade, here's what I have to do. In the Manage Grades area, the final calculated grade here, if I click on the little drop down and I choose Enter Grades, there is a checkbox over here on the right for release final calculated grade. Now, if I check that for this student, it's going to go ahead and release it. So you can pick and choose what students you want to release it if that's something you want to do. But if you want to release it to everybody, you'll place a check down there for everybody. And there's a quick way of doing that. So if you've got 100 students in your class, you don't have to click, you know, one at a time. What you can do is you can click this checkbox here to select all students. And then there's this release, unrelease option, and that would check every student at the same time for you. So now if I go ahead and save this, and then I go in, I'm going to go in as the demo student again so you can see that. And we got that doing that to me again. So now if I click Grade Tools and go to Grades, the student's going to see up here their final grade. That wasn't there before. So it shows them their points and their percentage, just like we told the system to do. So I'll get back out of that. One more thing I want to show you here. The schemes. So if I click on schemes here, that default scheme that we have is percentage. It's always there. We can't get rid of it. And what I've done in here is I've created a letter grade scheme. Now, if I want to create a new scheme, I would click the new scheme button here. And basically what I would do is create something like this letter grade scheme. So if I click on that to go into it, this is what it looks like. So I've given it a title. And what I've done is I've gone down the ranges here for plus minus. And I've said to D2L, if the student has a 0 to 59, show them F. And so it's still using the percentage. I'm just telling it to show something different based on the percentage that they get. So moving on up, if they get in between a 60 and a 63, show them D minus. And all the way up to an A if they get a 94 to 100. And then the color, if we show the grade scheme color, I mentioned that earlier, it just shows up behind the letter. So if they get an A, this green color will show up behind the A. So that's all the scheme is. It's not a way for the system to actually grade things. It's just a way for you to display that grade differently if you want to. You could type anything you want over here. So you could type in for A, hey, that was pretty nice work. That's what they would see. So you can type in whatever you want. That's what the grade scheme does. And you can apply different grade schemes to different grade items. So if I cancel out of this and go to my manage grades, for all of my assignments here, I left it to the default percentage. But let's say I want to change the scheme to the letter grade scheme for any of these. So if I go into assignment 1 and I go down to grade scheme and I change it to letter grade scheme, I'll save and close that. Now watch what happens when I go in as my student. Now when I click grade tools and go into grades, for that particular assignment, assignment 1, now they're seeing A instead of the percentage because I applied the letter grade scheme to it as opposed to the percentage scheme.
Okay.
Okay. So that's basically all that does. What I tend to do for my classes is I use percentages and points for all their grade items, and then for the final calculated grade, I use a letter grade scheme so they know what the letter grade is for their final score. That's just my personal preference there. So I'll get out of that. And that's basically it. That's the grade book.